Hello and welcome back. It's Lois here, and today I'm going to be showing you how I painted this dramatic scene with waves breaking against these rocks with a lighthouse and pine trees. It was a bit out of my comfort zone painting something like this. I'm hoping to show you that if you go out of your comfort zone, if you sort of take a chance and try something that you think might be a bit difficult for you, you can surprise yourself. And even though things aren't perfect, I learnt a lot from this, and I'm really enjoyed the process of trying to get somewhere near the amazing photograph that I found on Pixabay. This is a photograph that I was inspired by, and as you can see, I haven't painted it exactly, but I have tried to sort of capture the essence of it as far as I was able to. And so my first attempt here gives me a good starting point to move on and maybe try and make some improvements. If I'd shied away from painting it just because it looked a bit difficult, then I wouldn't be here now. Now I'm in a position to move forward and to try some different ideas that have been inspired from this first attempt. Here's my very loose pencil sketch. Pause it here if you want to take a closer look, but I've just outlined the very simple rough shapes of the rocky outcrops, the position of the trees, the lighthouse, and just a few marks to give me ideas as to the positions of the sea and the breaking wave. I'm using Canson Moulin de Roy 100% cotton paper. It's hot pressed, so it's a smooth texture. It's taped to my board with ordinary decorator's masking tape, and my board's at an angle of about 20 to 30 degrees. So I'm wetting the sky area to start with and down into the sea using basically clean water, my large wash brush, which is a Princeton Aqua Elite Mottler brush, and mostly horizontal brush strokes. Now I'm mixing up a mixture of cobalt blue with a bit of cerulean blue added into it, leaving a few gaps between my passages of blue paint for clouds, working around the headland, coming down and putting some of that colour across the water. I'm going to dip into some raw sienna, mix that with the blue so it gives me a slightly greenish tinge across the water, and softening the edge with a clean damp brush, although it had a little bit of paint in it, I didn't realise, so it wasn't quite clean, but try and use a clean brush when you soften edges. A little bit more stronger blue into the sky, and then I've dipped into my raw sienna and I'm putting a bit of that across the rock area. The rocks, just to give me some sort of highlights and to try and roughly and very loosely get in the shape of the rocky crags. Now I've flicked clean water into those washes for the land just to sort of give me some unpredictable marks and blossoms, thinning out the sky a little bit more, straightening it out. And I'm preparing myself now to get those crags in. I decided I wanted to get the crags in nice and dark to start with, so that once that land is in, then I can work around it. There's no wrong or right way of doing this. This is just the way that I've decided to tackle it. When it's something difficult and something new, I think just sort of forging in and see what happens is quite important. This is raw umber, burnt umber and some Payne's grey. You can see I'm using my large wash brush and just dashing in those crags, following my pencil lines, leaving sort of areas of unpainted paper as well, working around the wave, leaving that unpainted. And now this is my palette knife. I'm scraping through the rich paint just to create texture and to define some of the different headlands slightly and those sort of rocky outcrops. I know it looks a bit strange at the moment, but there's sort of a plan of sorts. But of course, this kind of experimentation is all about going for it, having the confidence just to try what you think might work and not minding if things don't work. This is my fan brush, and I've mixed Payne's Grey and raw sienna to make a really dark green, and I'm going to put in these pine trees, and I'm hoping that they will really help to add some context to this scene of the pine trees growing out of these stark rocky crags. So that's the first layer of pine trees in, and I'm liking the way that they look. I now want to just rough in the lighthouse. I'm using a small eradicator brush here. It's like a flat brush but with shorter bristles, and I'm just roughing in the shape. And that wasn't really working as the right brush for the job, so I've switched now to a rigger brush because it was handy and there's a smaller point, just to get in the rough shape of the lighthouse. Now, this isn't intended as a finished painting. This is intended as an experiment, if you'll remember, pushing myself out of my comfort zone and trying to work out how I can paint a scene like this. So I'm not too worried about the lighthouse looking exactly right. I just want it to be very loose and just to be representative of that building on the top of the crag. So again, that gives me some context. Now back to that little eradicator brush, which is really nice for adding in the sort of buildings and bits and bobs that's built around the base of the lighthouse. Just a little bit of something in nothing, really. So now moving on to the wave, I'm going to re-wet the area with my water spray, a quick burst of spray, and I've got my Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White ink here, because that's a nice strong white, and using my fan brush I'm spattering on some white drops across and around the wave and just across the sea and the rocks, and I'll just work into the water a bit more and just see what happens. And working into that paint a little bit with a palette knife, dragging the paint around. I'll use it to drag some nice strong horizontal marks through the water. And then back in just a few marks around the trees, connecting the trunks to the rocks. And now I'm going to lay my board flat, and just before I leave everything to dry, I'm going to spatter on some more of that white just across the base of the painting, using a tissue to dab any strong marks out, just to knock it back a little bit. And now I need to leave it to dry completely. And here's the dry painting so far. I think it needs something to bring that wave out a bit more, so I'm going to use a size 3 round brush and Payne's Grey with a bit of burnt umber in it and a little bit of cobalt blue to make a really nice dark, almost black colour. And I'm going to carefully work around the edges of the wave, softening and smudging the edge back in places with my finger. And then I'm going to build up a bit more of that bleed-proof white ink so that I can get a really good, or a maximum contrast if possible, between the dark and the light, which should help my wave to stand out a bit more. And I'll use some of that dark colour around the base of my trees where they're growing out of the rock, just to give that a bit more depth and just a bit more sort of 3D-ness. I've swapped to the size 2 quill brush to add in a bit more white around my darker areas to build up the wave, and I'll swap between that and a 3/4 inch flat brush for sort of integrating the wave into the water a bit more if I can. I think it's making a bit of difference. I'm liking the look of the wave a little bit more. Slowly building up a bit more value and a little bit more colour in the water using the flat brush and mostly horizontal brush strokes, just introducing a bit of the sky colour here and there in the water. Not too much, just a few darker values here and there, just putting a little bit more of that dark into the wave. Just a touch of that blue. And I think I'm almost there. I'm going to spatter on some more white, maybe spatter on a bit of darker blue using the cobalt blue here and there. Not too many drops, just a few here and there. I just think this adds a little bit of life, a little bit of freshness to it. I can take stock at the end of the painting and decide which parts of this I like and which parts I'm less keen on, and that will help me to move forward and hopefully continue making progress on this kind of scene. bit more dark just around the base of the trees where it's dried back a little lighter. Maybe pulling a bit more dark across some of the rocks, sort of fairly randomly, keeping them looking really loose and really fresh. And I'm going to stop now because I think I'm in danger of overworking it. So I'm going to remove the tape and have a look and see how it looks. But just before I take a closer look at the finished painting, a quick plug for my book, Landscapes in Watercolour, Techniques and Tutorials for the Complete Beginner. If you've enjoyed this video, you may be interested in my book. I'll leave a couple of links in the description below. There are 10 projects and lots of information that I'm hoping you'll find really helpful. So let's take a look at the painting. I'm really pleased that I decided to give this a go. I'm really happy with the rocky outcrops and the pine trees especially. I love the values, I love the looseness. I'm a little less convinced by the wave and the water, but I've got a good starting point to move forward and to try some different experiments to see if I can work out how to achieve these kinds of effects and these sorts of elements as freshly as I've managed to achieve the rest. And so by stepping out of my comfort zone, I've now given myself a really good stepping stone to make progress. Well, I really hope this has inspired you to step out of your comfort zone and maybe tackle a landscape or seascape scene that you've been putting off for a while, thinking that it's a bit too difficult. There's no place like starting with something to give yourself a base point to move forward. So give it a go, you might surprise yourself. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and maybe leave a comment below if you found this interesting. And if you'd like to support the channel, then there are links to our Patreon groups below. And thank you so much to everybody that already supports us on Patreon. We really do appreciate you. I'll see you again soon. Take care and happy painting. Bye.